Alright, so this is going to be part 4 to what if Deku had Bond's powers. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
They trip took it to 10. Let me tell you how I come through with the 1-2, kicking shit like kung fu. Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
So before we start this actual what if, I would like to say in the last video that I did, not part 3 of this, but the last video I did on my channel, I told you guys about this new YouTube group that I'm making called The Sins. And if you guys wanted to join it, the only requirements that you would need is that you need to be a what if YouTuber, right? But I'm gonna do a quick update on that situation. So right now we have 2 members. There's me, who I'm actually the sin of greed, and then we have Kid Zeus as the sin of pride. So we have 2 confirmed members so far. We might have a sloth, the sin of sloth pretty soon, but we need to kind of the person who wants to be it wants I need him to respond to me, and then we might have a few others, but they just need to think about it or in response. So if you want to be part of this group, all you have to do is tell me your YouTube name, link me one of your best videos. And then a third requirement is that you need to have either Twitter or Discord. If you don't have either, then you're not eligible to apply. So, yeah. With that being said, let's get into actual what if. So last time we just got done with the USJ. So in this one, we just got done with the USJ and all the women kind of confessing their love about Deku, right? So I put up 2 polls yesterday on the part 3 of this video, and you guys told me that from the polls you want Tamaki to have One for All, and you want the harem where Deku is shared between the women of class 1A. So that's what we're gonna do. So we get to the part where it's all the women in the classroom, they just found out that everyone basically likes Deku. So I think Ashido would say something like, how about we just share him, as kind of like a joke. But then more of the women start to kind of agree, since they all like this guy and they don't want to fight, so they all agree to kind of share him. And then Ashido again says, oh, how about we have some sort of pecking order, and we use the sports festival as the catalyst for it. Because I had this as a comment about how there should be a pecking order to see which one's like the main kind of girl. So for the contest, it would be the sports festival. So as this is happening, it would cut like the next day. And this is when Aizawa actually tells the students that they're going to have a sports festival. So everyone's pretty excited because it's the time to show off what they could do and see how many internships they could acquire. So this is a pretty good chance to show off their powers. Like I said, after all this is happening, they go to walk out their door for lunch, and this is when Shinso with class the general learning, I forgot what it's called, the general classes, he actually comes and does that same speech as does the Nutty the Hells in the anime about how they have to do their all, or else he's gonna come and steal their spot. So Deku, he goes up to Shinso, kind of looks down on him, not that he's saying that he's weaker or anything, just physically, because he's a lot taller, right? So he would be like, you seem pretty determined. I like that. Maybe you can actually. We do have an open slot right now, because I'm pretty sure Mineta gets kicked out in this one, if I remember. Yeah. So Shinso gets like a ray of hope, right? And Deku's like, but you gotta try your best, because there's an open slot and anyone from the other classes could join, so try your best. So in this what if, Deku and All Might aren't as close as they were in canon, because they never got to that situation where Deku saw him in that small form of his, and he doesn't really know about One for All. So they don't have that kind of conversation where All Might kind of takes him to the staff room to kind of talk about the sports festival. So they're still at lunch, right? It's in that normal group that Deku's usually in, with Ida and Ochako. And this is when Monoma comes and basically kind of tells him that he's gonna beat Class 1A in the sports festival. And he talks about how like they're kind of a attractor to villainy and stuff like that, like just how he does in the anime. So this is when the girl with the large with the big hands quirk kind of comes and like knocks him out and takes him away, right? So after they kind of move along, this is when all the girls in Class 1A kind of come up to Deku and basically explain that they all have feelings for him and they want to share him, and they give him like a box of chocolates, right? And Deku would be like, "Oh wow, you too, Uraraka?" And she would be blushing and she'd be like, "Yes." And Deku would be like, "Oh wow, I feel a bit greedy having all these pretty women with me," right? Because Bond and sin of greed, you get it. So Deku's kind of smiling and kind of smirking. He's like, all right, ladies." And as this is going down, all the guys that are there in the cafeteria are really jealous, since Deku just got his own harem and he's really smug about it. But at the same time, you gotta admire a guy who gets that many women only in a few days or a few weeks in school, right? So they explain that well, I guess not. They wouldn't explain the competition that they have between each other. So we cut, for the week for them to train. And Deku, for training, basically, he goes with Bakugo, right? So that he could get over his fear of trying to hurt people by kind of desensitizing him to it. So what he does is he has Bakugo just kind of blow him up, just a bunch of times, right? This would desensitize Bakugo, because he would see, he would get used to seeing people get hurt from his quirk, and this would help Deku, since from like 7 Deadly Sins, the more Bond kind of regenerates, the stronger his like skin and muscles get. At least that's what like Purgatory Bond, like he had to go like 1,000 over, like I think it was like 1,000 years just to get as strong as he is currently in the manga. So it wouldn't be too much of a boost, but it'd still be somewhat of a good boost to Deku's physical strength and durability. Because right now it's pretty much like around still human level around durability, so it's not as strong as Bond's. A little bit more than a human, I guess, but not to superhuman extent, I guess. So in between training, what Deku does is that he kind of hangs out with the different girls of Class 1A to kind of spend more time with them and try to get to know them. So that's what he kind of does in between his training, and he gives them advice on how to use their quirk just by observing how it works and things like that, because it's still that kind of analytical side of Deku where he's able to kind of see the best option for quirk users, because he still admired heroes as a kid, so you still have that kind of index of all the different kind of heroes and their kind of fighting styles, right? So that's what he would do, right, to kind of help him out. So he was kind of surprised of how determined each of the girls were to kind of getting as far as they can in the sports festival. So when we get to the actual sports festival day, they're in the locker room, and this is when Deku asks some of the girls why they're kind of, why they're so determined, because he's kind of casual at this point. He doesn't really care too much. He just thinks of it as like a cool like competition, right? So they each kind of give their own explanation, and when it comes to Uraraka and he learns her backstory, he's like, wow, that's really noble of you trying to help your parents. And the other girls kind of get jealous of this because he's giving her more attention than the others. So they kind of like surround him and try to get his attention. So as they're doing this is when Todoroki comes up to him and basically says, he says like, you might be immortal, but there's no way you could beat my ice, right? So the other girls are like, what's his deal? And Todoroki is kind of like annoyed because Deku's just surrounded by all these women. He's not like jealous because he has all these women. He's just kind of annoyed because they're making a lot of noise, if that makes sense. So we get to the actual obstacle course. So in this one, or before that, we actually get to they go to the field and they do that kind of speech. So Deku, I think he would be the he would be the one doing the speech, right? So he'd be the class representative. He'd basically say like, wow, it's nice to see that we have a lot of people watching us, and he would he would take this really casually and make a couple jokes in between his speeches, right? So after he was done with his speech, the crowd would like really like Deku since he has a lot of charisma. So they get to the starting line, and this is when what's it called? What they basically say, I forgot the hero who does it. Yeah, President Mike basically says, ready, set, go, and everyone tries to rush in between the small kind of opening. So what Deku does is that he kind of like cracks his neck and goes like, alright, let's try and win this. And this is when he actually does a Hunter Fest. And like I said before, a Hunter Fest basically takes the physical strength of every living thing within 100 feet. Deku would do this. He'd bulk up a lot. People that are in the corridor would feel weaker, even his own classmates. So basically he would just kind of jump over the entire arena and kind of land on the other side. And as he's going, he's running as fast as he could. Well, not as fast, but he's running at a decent speed, right? Because if he went all out, he would go around Mach 3. So that's like All Might speed. And as he's running, he sees the 0 pointers, and he kind of just has his arms out, and then he just runs past the 0 pointers, and the arms, as he like touches the 0 pointers, the parts, like his arms are just cutting through it almost like a knife, because he's going so fast and he's very strong at this point. So when it gets to the other parts, like the mines, he has no problem really going through it because of his regeneration and his immortality. So by the time he gets out of the landmines, he would just come out the other side kind of limping because he probably lost a leg running through there, and he would just get to the finish line. So for everyone else, I think the second place winner would be probably Ida, because since the most of the mines were exploded from Deku, I think he would have an easier time just running. And then third place, I would say it'd probably be Todoroki, just because of his ice powers. And then fourth would be Bakugo, because in this one, Bakugo is actually slightly weaker than he was in canon because of what happened in his past. So that's what I'm going to say. So, Deku, like, people are seeing that he has no leg and he's bleeding a lot, and the crowd's shocked. And Deku's kind of playing it up, going like, oh my god, my leg. And he starts like, he holds it for a second and he's like, oh my god, the pain. And then he removes his hand and then it's fully healed. He's like, just kidding. And the crowd's like, whoa, like what kind of quirk does he have? Right? So, the crowd would be amazed seeing that he was able to regenerate. And not only that, but he was very strong and things like this. But at this point, since Deku used a a Hunter Fest, he's very tired right now. So he's very exhausted, and when it comes to the cavalry battle, most of the women would want to be on his team, since, you know, they're kind of dating him at this point. So if we were to make a full female team for him, let me think. So Deku basically picks for his female team to be Uraraka, Suyu, aka Froppy, and then Momo. So I think Deku would be at the top because he's very exhausted and can't really do much. So what he does is, what he tells him is that, alright, Uraraka, make us weightless, and then we'll have Suyu basically jump as high as she can, and then have Momo, you know, provide us with anything that we need, such as weapons or some sort of defense, right? So in this one, it's kind of different than it is in canon, because no one there really has the power to fly, really. They could jump pretty high, but even then, I think Momo would kind of make some sort of like net launcher in some way. So Deku's game plan at this point is just to run out the clock. So most people kind of ignore him since they can't really fly. But there are some, like Todoroki, that would try to use his ice to get close, and Bakugo, who would use his like his explosions to kind of get higher. But then again, it's easy for them to maneuver with people like Momo, that could create some sort of kind of like, I guess, like giant like fans, not like electrical ones, but like more of ones that you just kind of flap on yourself, you know what I mean? She would just make giant ones, and she would kind of just use the wind around her to kind of push her, because they have no weight to them, so it'd be really easy to move, right? So they would kind of burn out the time, and they would all advance to the next round. And the normal people who still do, like the people who still advance in the anime, kind of still do like the main three. So Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo, right? Ojiro would still inform Deku about Shinso's quirk to control people. So the first fight against Shinso and Deku would basically take away, or he would steal Shinso's perception and kind of push him out of the ring, because he wouldn't be able to see him, so it'd be a lot easier. Somewhat to what he does in canon, but like a lot more efficient. And he doesn't get as hurt as much. So we get to the kind of next fight, and I guess it'd be kind of the same outcome for each of them. It'd be Deku versus Todoroki, and this one is kind of different. Deku would kind of question Todoroki about how he doesn't use his fire side, and Todoroki would try to kind of ignore him, right? And at this point, Deku's like fully recovered from his Hunter Fest, so he'd be able to break the ice pretty easily, kind of like what he does in canon, but he wouldn't break his fingers, right? So he would keep on breaking the ice and tell Todoroki, he's like, Todoroki, this isn't gonna work. I could just break your ice very easily. You need to use more than only half of your quirk. You need to use all of it, or else it's not gonna work. You're not gonna have a chance to beat me at all. And Todoroki's not listening to him because he doesn't want to use how he describes it as his father's quirk because of how he treated his mother. And Deku just keeps on telling him, like, Todoroki, use your other side of your quirk. It's yours. You were born with it. You're lucky to have a quirk. Some people in this world aren't born with any, and some are born with useless ones. So you were born with a great one, so why don't you use it? So this kind of connects with Todoroki, and this is when he basically charges up a giant like fireball or fire blast, like how he does in the anime. And when he charges it, this is when he shoots it at Deku, and he would basically say, like, try to come back from this, right? And he would shoot it at Deku, and you know what would be remained is probably Deku with like half of his like chest gone, and it would just start to regenerate, right? So we get to the finals of Bakugo versus Deku, and Deku is trying to build up Bakugo's confidence, because in this one he's not as confident as he is in canon, and he's nowhere near as hot-headed. So he lets Bakugo have a few hits on him, right? And he's not using most of his power to give him like this good fight. So he kind of pretends to get hurt by the attacks, and after he feels like Bakugo has gotten, enough of his confidence up, he pretends like he has to do like his last resort. And this is when like he basically just one-shots Bakugo, because like I said, he's like near All Might levels of strength and speed. So he'd be able to kind of like push him out of the arena with a pretty large attack, right? Like a pretty devastating hit to the gut, and he would like fly back into a wall, but not to the point where he would like be very injured, kind of like how Todoroki and Deku and Canon were kind of knocked towards the wall. It'd be like that. So Deku would be declared the winner, and the people who are watching this are the League of Villains, and they're like, Shigaraki would be like, wow, that's the kid who killed our Nomu. I didn't know he had this kind of power. I thought, when I was going against him, I knew there was something strange, but who would have known that he could regenerate this much? So next would be All Might giving the medals to each of the winners, or the 3 top spots, and he would kind of give them advice, right? He wouldn't really give Deku too much advice. He'd just basically say, like, thanks for kind of helping out the other students. You did a great job here. He really got them out of their shells. Things like that, right? And he would go up to Bakugo and talk about, like, in the past, you were scared to use your quirk because you couldn't control it. But now that you're older and you're at UA, you have your quirk fully under control at this point. So there's no reason to hold back anymore. And he goes up to Todoroki and says, you gotta learn that both of your quirks are amazing, but your ice is your true defense and your fire is your true offense. So if you don't use both, then you're limiting yourself as a person and as a hero. And after this entire the ceremony's done, they go to the changing room, and they basically Deku overhears Ida talking on the phone, and he talks about how, like, he hears about his brother and how he was hurt and things like that, right? So he's kind of concerned for Ida and what he's going to do. So I think I'm gonna end it here. The next part we'll get to the Stain fight and things like that. And yeah, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. If you want to join the Sins, then like what I said from earlier, comment down your YouTube name and link me your best videos. You must have either Twitter or Discord to join, and you have to be a What If YouTuber. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah,